Good evening, you're watching Market Talk and I'm Ibrahim Sani. Earlier this week, I had a good discussion with the Minister of International Trade and Industry, Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad. During that conversation, the two themes that keep on coming up from the initiatives of the government would be on the Fourth Industrial Revolution and how it impacts the business community, as well as the SME sector and how the government is actually trying to push forward the SME agenda. So joining me is the Managing Director of Microsoft Malaysia, Mr. K. Raman, to discuss both of these large themes. Mr. Raman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Ibrahim, for having me here.
The Ministry of International Trade will come up with the Industry 4.0 blueprint in the first quarter of next year. Within it, we expect to see a clearer picture of what the Fourth Industrial Revolution would be pertaining to how the business community exists in this country. For a business leader like yourself and for the company that has been here for over 3 decades, can you discuss a little bit what would be the expectations of this blueprint and how this impacts your business?
Well, I think it's first definitely great for the Minister to take this initiative of coming out with a blueprint for Industry 4.0. I think through our experience and through the learnings of all the other 3 industrial revolutions, we've clearly seen that either organizations or companies that have not adopted the Industry Revolution have all been left behind. So clearly for us today, the Industry 4.0 is dawned upon us. The advancement that we are seeing that's happening in the technology front, things like AI, things like Internet of Things, things like mixed reality or augmented reality, all powered by the cloud, is giving limitless possibilities for both organizations and even nations to actually move forward. So
wouldn't this underline the fact that technology companies would be at the center of everything in terms of trying to get it up and running? For a company like yours, you have moved from building building software to now into the AI space, particularly in the cloud space. Does this position Microsoft quite well into the 21st century?
It certainly is, Ibrahim. If you looked at it and the way we looked at how companies have evolved over time, we believe the future is all about data-driven business. So how do you use data and how you use data to differentiate yourself? Obviously, organizations like Microsoft, who's been in the business of generating and producing data to help organizations run more effectively, is in the forefront of helping organizations to transform going forward. So to Microsoft, we've been in the business for the last 42 years, and here in Malaysia, we've been here for the last 25 years. And while we take pride of being and producing the best platform and productivity company, but what's more important is about how organizations is using Microsoft technology to help them be more productive and help them compete in the market space.
Let's talk about how companies are using Microsoft in the workspace. With the cloud services that you offer right now, Microsoft OneDrive and many others, does this actually help change how organizations do business, or it's still same old for the past, 20 years?
I think it's the entire IT landscape has changed, right? So if you even look at Microsoft, when we started the company 42 years ago, the mission for Bill Gates then is to have a PC in every desktop and every home, right? Because at that point, the IT is new and people have not used productivity tools. So even here in Malaysia, 25 years is a long time that we've been in Malaysia. For those who have started in the IT industry as long as I have been, when we first get into the business, right, there's not even a PC in every desktop. We need to share PCs. Typewriters was the way of people doing it. So Microsoft saw the opportunity of first, how do you then democratize IT so that it is pervasive, not only to the large, big enterprises, but making IT possible for everyone, the large organizations, the SMEs, and also consumer. So the adoption that we have seen traditionally in the earlier days is about increasing productivity, using simple applications like word processor, Excel, and obviously PowerPoint to do presentations, have helped increase the productivity at a personal level, how we have helped in the collaboration of people through the email and the ability to then communicate within the organization and across the organization. Now organizations are leapfrogging because, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, Industry 4.0 is upon us. Every company needs to be a digital company. And today, how they're using technology to help move forward and help differentiate themselves in the future.
So I'm going to let in on a little secret. Even a company like Astro, and for that matter, Astrawani, is trying to evolve and try to understand better how our audience looks like. We have just redesignated our big boss as the Chief Content Officer, and he will use data-driven technology to actually assess and understand what the audience wants instead of us providing the content to our audience. Many other organizations outside of Astro is doing the same. And because of this, organizations have to be very selective and very discerning in terms of trying to find a cloud partner, a partner that assesses our data very, very extensively, particularly when many of these data are now unstructured data and they have to be processed somewhere using various kinds of methods, including AI. How do you stack up against many of your competitors, including Amazon, including Oracle, and many others that are traditionally already in this space, but Microsoft is only now entering into it?
Yeah. So one is obviously Astro is a big customer for Microsoft. You are already a strong adopter of our O365. And very recently, we've worked with Astro Arena, specifically just on what you've mentioned about how do you use AI and big data to actually understand and personalize content for your consumer. And in that aspect, Stadium Astro has deployed that technology on the Microsoft Azure cloud. And from our understanding, and it was also reported in the papers about once you personalize the content and once you understand who your audience are and giving them the right content, we have seen the click-through increase by 300%. So we've worked that with Astro, so we're glad that Astro are one of the early adopters that are looking at cloud and cloud-based technology going forward. But what's differentiating ourselves is we clearly see as you get into the cloud technology, organizations historically and now into the cloud infrastructure wants to deal with companies that they can trust. And for Microsoft, having the ability to have what we call a trusted cloud platform is what we are positioning ourselves. We ensure that customers' data complies to 4 different areas that we looked at. One is all about security, second about compliance, third about transparency, and fourth about data privacy. So when we build our cloud infrastructure, we have all these 4 key components to ensure our customers that the data that they keep, the custodian of the data is still the customers. And when you comply to all the 4 areas that I just mentioned, it gives comfort to the customer about keeping their data in the Microsoft data center.
We'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss the very pertinent issue of data security. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Market Talk. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Today we're talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution. I have with me K. Raman, the MD, or the Managing Director of Microsoft Malaysia. Before we left off for the break, you were talking about the 4 specific areas that you provide to, or you give assurance to your customers. And it's actually intertwined with one single topic, which is on data security, because from here, it breaches out into many other forms, including the privacy, how you be the custodian of your information, such others. And if anything can be categorized in the world of data for 2017, it's data breaches. Yes. Hundreds of millions of accounts in various forms and fashion have been leaked. Earlier this year, we found out that in 2014, about 30 million mobile numbers have been leaked, resulting in about 10 million individuals being exposed. This is just another example of the many data breaches that happens or is happening. And is it because of data now being moved into the cloud that data is now being compromised? Because if 5 years ago, for instance, we don't see this many data breaches. What's the story here?
Yeah, so first, I will position it differently, right, Ibrahim? I don't think that breaches are because the data are on the cloud. So I think, as you rightly mentioned about all the breaches that we are seeing happening here, even in Malaysia, on the mobile subscribers. I don't think those data are actually on what we call the hyperscale public cloud infrastructure. So organizations like us and our other competitors that is providing the public cloud infrastructure are investing billions of dollars every year to secure what we call the parameter, both physical and also the virtual parameters, to ensure that we protect our customers' data. So organizations like Microsoft, we spend billions of dollars every year to ensure that the data on our cloud is highly secured. We believe, right, today the cybercrime activities are happening at a much rapid pace. So while you're seeing all these breaches is happening, the cybercrime activities are well funded. Organizations are looking at various different ways to access organizations' parameters. And really, today, if you looked at it, organizations are challenged to actually build their own security against these well-funded cybercrime activities, or what we call the dark web behind it, to penetrate into any organizations that has personal data, that has credit card data, that they can then do the ransomware activities. You've seen what happened to WannaCry.
Yeah.
You have seen what happened to Petya. These are all activities by the dark world to be able to leverage on what we call the vulnerabilities of data centers that do not have the right security investments.
Sorry, I just have to interject here. Because of the fact that it's well-funded, nobody argues that it's not going to be well-funded, it's actually well-funded. Many of them are actually state actors in funding these activities. Are you stacked up against a notion that it's very hard to go up against? The moment a government funds these dark actors, what resources can private companies like Astro, like Microsoft, like many others in this country and beyond, can fight against these dark actors?
That's why we are constantly engaging with organizations to advise them, right? The best way forward is really to look at organizations like Microsoft or the rest of the public cloud providers who are really investing, right, in protecting the customer's data. We don't see typical any organizations today that's able to invest all the money to help protect your data, be it Astro, be it large financial institutions, or even telco. That's why we applaud our Prime Minister, who came out with a cloud-first policy for the public sector, and also recommending for all the other regulated markets like financial services, healthcare, and telco to adopt the cloud-first policy, because we, as organizations that's providing the cloud infrastructure, once needs to ensure that our reputation is well protected, because no other companies will then want to host their data once any data breaches happens in the public cloud infrastructure. So yes, to your questions, we invest in terms of dollars, we invest in terms of people that constantly protect the Microsoft public cloud to ensure that any breaches, right, that we are proactively protecting this. And we are using AI, we are using machine learning to look at potential breaches that's going to happen to our public cloud and then put the right mechanism to protect it. Right?
If there's one thing that gets you have going for you is that Microsoft is a rather trusted brand in the world of IT, more trusted than most, I suppose. And with this in mind, you are trying to push forward your business agenda to not just the large corporations, but also the medium-sized corporations. That comes in various forms and fashion, SMB, SMC, SME. But this is indeed a very key area to look at, because you are addressing 90% of the business population in the country. What would be the key challenges in trying to navigate through the various vast network of the SME world?
Yes. So SMB is a big market.
Yeah.
Very much, you know, I think 97% of total establishment in Malaysia are the SMB market. They obviously generate 36% of the GDP and 18% of Malaysian exports. So this is a big market.
Not to mention the number of people they hire.
Precisely, right? If you look at the IT adoption in the SMB has been pretty low, right? And we believe that the cloud technology today will enable the SMBs to quickly adopt IT solutions to help them be more productive and be more competitive.
Okay, hang on. We now know that Google is doing very well in trying to get the SME onto the cloud, anywhere from Gmail to Google Drive to any other of their suite products. Are you losing out in terms of trying to tap into the SME, considering that Google has got there first ahead of you?
We are obviously mindful of the competitors, and we respect them. And we also applaud technology companies that's helping any organizations to be productive. But for Microsoft, we do work very closely with SME Corp today to help enable the SMBs to be more productive going forward. So coming back, what has been the biggest inhibitors for the SMBs are one, in terms of cost, and two, in terms of getting the right skill sets and manpower to run the IT shops. So both of these has changed with the move towards the public cloud infrastructure. Now from a cost perspective, you're moving from a CAPEX model to an OPEX model. Pay as you go, use what you want to use and pay what you use. From a manpower perspective, you don't need to manage your infrastructures today. Everything is in the cloud, is being managed well going forward. So that blocker has now been removed, and we are starting to see more and more SMEs adopting technology going forward. So on that front, we do work very closely with SME Corp. We do now work in various different ways to get more and more SMEs to get into the bandwagon of adopting IT going forward.
Right, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the proposition to the SME community. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Market Talk. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. I have with me the MD of Microsoft Malaysia, K. Raman. Okay, I hate to sound, pushing for products, but indeed, Microsoft have had some success in terms of getting through the world of devices, including Microsoft Surface. We've seen how telcos bundle products with the mobile phones and their plans, and has done well and served them well for the past decade. Does the Microsoft retail guys, at least in Malaysia, plan something similar in terms of bundling products with Microsoft Surface, for instance, and the cloud offering for the SME community? Is there such a plan in the pipeline?
Certainly, Ibrahim, has technology evolved, we've also seen how we have evolved our partner ecosystem in Malaysia. So today, traditionally, you have people who sell license. Today, we have a partner ecosystem which we call the cloud service providers. And in that aspect, our partners ecosystem brings in a complete solution from the Microsoft O365, which includes email and all the productivity tools and collaboration tools, into business applications like simple accounting system, simple HR system. And we are starting to see more and more enterprise divisions of all the telcos, be it Maxis, DG, Celcom, coming to talk to Microsoft about how do we bundle all the applications together with the devices that they could then package it for their corporate customers. And obviously, as you rightly mentioned, the SMB is the sweet spot for most of these telcos wanting to work with Microsoft to be able to offer these bundle packages out to the market. And with this in mind, does this bring up your cost? Because you are actually now trying to put forward some hardware on top of the software that you're offering. How do you manage the cost from this level, from this point of view? Yes, cost is always the factor that we looked at. And we also are being realistic about how do we bundle these services so that at the end of the day, it's how do you balance the return of investment for your customer versus the IT spend. And more we looked at how do you then work based on what I said, the OPEX model of bundling all these services versus an APEX model to an OPEX model, from a CAPEX model to an OPEX model, so that the IT consumption is balanced with the return of investment that they're doing in this front. So for example, we work with a company called Financio, which is a simple-based accounting system for the micro SMBs. And what they're doing is they're actually offering freemium software first, so that organizations can have a taste of it, use it, and see the benefits of this financial accounting system. And once they liked it, then you go into the paid services so that, from 10 invoices and below, we offer this as a freemium. Anything above, you start paying for it. But what we are changing is getting them the experience of manpower reduction, of productivity gain, by using this cloud-based technology, and then seeing whether it's relevant for them to invest going forward. At the center of it all, you're still dealing with people, and those in the SME sector, many of them are rather traditional in, sorry to blanket the whole assumption here, but in Malaysia at least, it's rather traditional way of doing things. In fact, to get them to open a PC, it's rather of a challenge. I'm imagining my dad right now.
how do you move from the traditional way of doing things to the new way of doing things, particularly when you're dealing with the SME sector who might not see the upside in being technologically savvy in the way they do things? They've been doing things for the past 10 years. They say it's fine. Why should I change?
Interesting enough, our experience has shown that more and more SMB is adopting technology right now. They understand that the world is a global competition today. You don't only compete in your home, you compete with the global world today, right? So I think that awareness is starting to increase. And together with the good work that we're doing with SME Corp in collaboration about the awareness of getting into the boot camps, talking to the SMEs, talking to the startups about how technology can help them be more productive, how technology can bring their products to the global world. We are starting an increased awareness and increased adoption of IT in the SMEs. Yes, so education is important, awareness is important. We do a lot of roadshows and a lot of education to the SMB community, together leveraging our partner ecosystem here in Malaysia to reach out to as many people as possible so that they see the benefits of IT and they see how IT can help them transform, especially in this digital world.
Zooming the scope even further, the Prime Minister has had this mega launch of the Digital Free Trade Zone. The primary thrust of this is trying to ensure that the SME across Malaysia are able to enjoy the benefits of e-commerce. The e-fulfillment hub is a big thing now. The turnaround time in terms of delivery, the final mile, is of course the big thing now. Do you think that the company that is in the space of cloud, in the space of hardware manufacturing, could benefit from the rise of e-commerce?
Oh, definitely, right? We're seeing all this as creating what we call the digital transformation for all the SMBs and also large and big corporations, right? So we want to leverage on that, and that's how Microsoft has transformed ourselves from just being an office productivity company into cloud-based. But what's more important, again, we always focus on what makes sense for the customer. And in the digital transformation that we are seeing with the customers with Industry 4.0, we kind of help the customers to look at 4 areas which we believe is going to be very important for them to be relevant going forward. One, as we mentioned earlier, how do you use technology to better engage with your customers? 2 is how do you empower your employees? 3, how do you optimize your operations? And 4, how do you transform your product and services? So in all these 4 fronts, Microsoft is bringing our products and solutions to help engage the customers better. So you, as an organization, is able to have a complete end-to-end view of what your customer, who your customers are, what their preference is, so that you can do predictive recommendations and next best recommendations for the choice of what your customers want, and getting it to be very personalized. Everyone wants to feel special, so personalization for the consumer services is very important. For the large, big enterprises, likewise. In the areas of empowering your employees, right, today you're having the new millennials coming into the work. They want to have the ability to work anywhere from everywhere, right? So the ability to have the right collaboration tools, the right information, the latest information, so they themselves are empowered to make the right decisions is important. This is where our O365 and collaboration tools makes all the sense for the customers. Maximizing or optimizing operations is very much with IR 4.0, is helping manufacturers, for example, using IoT so that they are more efficient in terms of how they can run their business, and also on the preventive maintenance piece. And the last and most interesting is using technology to transform your business. I think this is where more and more organizations are looking at technology to help them change and help them compete better.
Raman, thanks for having me this morning. I've been speaking to K. Raman, the MD of Microsoft Malaysia, but that wraps up this episode of Market Talk. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at 50101, and download our app on the Google Play and the Apple App Store, perhaps even the Microsoft App Store as well. I'm Ibrahim Sani, thanks for watching and goodbye.